Hey guys, alright, so thank you so much for watching my first video and such. As you know, last night was I was just having a really emotional day, and it's pretty rare that I get to a point where like I'm pretty much like paralyzed all day because there's something that's just really, really bothering me and really has me stressed out and stuff. And it was so good to figure out that it was just my being vulnerable and just feeling like, I'm exposed and I'm out there and other people, it's really in their power to say yes to me or to reject me, and that just sucks. Especially when I think you are coming from a borderline background and all that stuff. So because I think that what I learned growing up was, to be the opposite of vulnerable, which was to be protective. And I think like protective in like a couple of ways. One was, of course, to avoid getting hurt by just not letting people in, So, for example, I think about like my dating life when I was in like high school and college. It was really rather non-existent. um, and the reason why was because I was scared to be in a relationship. I was scared to let myself be vulnerable with a guy, because I thought for sure, like, I would just get hurt, or I'd make a stupid decision with a guy. And, I knew even then that there wasn't something right with me, at that point, and that I just wasn't strong enough or secure enough. And, and the guys that I was attracting then, they were good men. They were. But, I think about, it just wouldn't have worked, though. It really wouldn't have. And it would have been a toxic relationship because I was in a toxic place, of course, at that time and stuff, too. So I think avoiding, and I think the other thing that I think we tend to do when we're being protective of ourselves is to be too adaptive. It's, I think, the opposite. Instead of avoiding, it's like you cling to that person, and you become like whatever they want. Gosh, that's been a big tendency of mine too. When I think about like relationships, and I just remember how I would say the last guy that I was in love with, how I just melded myself to him, and compromised myself, and I wasn't who I really meant. I really had a hard time voicing my dislikes in the relationship, or the things I struggled with, and boy, he sure wasn't very helpful with that either. And that's because I don't know, he might have actually been a little narcissistic, and I wasn't completely aware at the time, but but it just was bad because I just kept being what he wanted, because then I'm protecting myself from being rejected. So, excuse me. Anyway, so there's being protective, and then there's being vulnerable. And I was reading this article, and I actually posted it yesterday underneath my video from, I think it was Psychology Today, about how vulnerability is our strength, because vulnerability is what is kind of like what opens us to be fully alive. And I thought that was a really great point, because that's the whole reason why we're here, right? I mean, really, the reason why we exist, the reason why you're watching these videos on YouTube about recovering from an abusive family, because we all know deep down inside that our biggest responsibility in life is to just be us, like, fully. And so then, because, we are a gift to other people, we are a gift to the world. And I think what happens is when we're protective of ourselves by either avoiding people or opportunities, or by just being completely melding into what other people want, like, we cheat other people out of us, out of our gifts, out of our who we are as people. But also too, I think it's almost like, in order for me to avoid being abused by people, I detach from them, or like I avoid them, and then I end up abusing myself then, ultimately, because I'm not letting myself be connected to them. So anyway, yeah. So the whole idea of vulnerability, that I'm meant to live my life to the fullest. You can't not do that. I mean, you have to be able to be vulnerable then, in that. You have to be able to put yourself out there and allow yourself to be exposed, and to allow your heart to be outside of you, I mean, because what else? It's just so hard to live any other way, right? I think that's why so many people are struggling with depression, or, eating disorders like I have, and, or alcoholism, or things like that, because we know deep down we're not living out life as well as we could be, and stuff. And so, anyway, so I think that, like, for me, the road to becoming more vulnerable so that I can continue to live my life fully, there's a couple of things I think I need to do. And I'm already doing them, but now I'm going to be more conscious and aware. The first one is, I need to continue to work on tolerating rejection. I would say in the last year, I've kind of put myself out there with, 3 different guys that I just think the world of, and none of them have worked out. And, I have learned that, like, it's cool that I can tolerate that rejection, Now, there's one in particular who I could pursue more, and he's the one that, he's like the one that feels like he got away from me. Or we never really got a chance to even try the relationship out. And so there's this big part of me that wants to keep trying with him, but I know right now, like, well, first off, I think he needs to pursue me anyway, but 2, it's, I've had to ask myself, like, before I've reached out to him, in different ways and stuff like that, or if I've seen, or I know I'm going to see him at a party, I've had to ask myself, like, April, if he's there with another woman, or he's flirting with other women, can you handle that? Can you handle feeling that rejection? And I've had to be honest with myself and say no. I think I'm getting better. I don't know. But there's, and I've had to be able to say, okay, then that's okay. Like, I'm not going to beat up on myself about that. What that just means is that, like, okay, I know my limit to how much I can tolerate rejection. And that's okay. And I think if I just keep kind of working on it a little bit at a time in different ways, like, I can get to that point where, I can even see on Facebook someday that, he's happily dating or engaged or married and popping babies and all that stuff. And I'll be okay, I have to trust that will happen at some point, but it's not going to happen today, and that's okay, so I think that, we have to always just kind of work a little bit on tolerating rejection, in the things that we do. It's just being able to, kind of go, okay, if I'm a little uncomfortable about putting myself out there, if I'm a little uncomfortable making a video about all of this stuff, that's a good thing. That means that I'm pushing the boundaries of my being vulnerable, which means that I'm learning more and more how to live my life fully, which is huge. So yeah. So instead of learning to avoid rejection by avoiding, things that I want in life, I'm trying to learn to tolerate and just slowly turn up the toleration, just like a dial. The other one I think too is, like I said, the whole like melding and, attaching to someone, or being a people pleaser in order to avoid being rejected. I think then what I have to learn to do is, I started coining this term, is use my empathy responsibly. Which means that, like, I know, because of the way I grew up, and I think this is the way I think almost all of us, I think, have this skill, is that we have a highly tuned ability to empathize with people and to get into their shoes and to feel whatever they're feeling. Because that's what we had to do with our moms. We had to, because, we knew deep down, the way that our relationship was with them was that we were to kind of take care of them, make sure that they were happy, make sure that we were pleasing them, and stuff like that. And so I think we all have this real tendency towards empathy and towards caring. And I think that's such a strong skill that we have, that you have to learn to shut it off at times. And it really is. It's like a superhero power. And it's like, you can't always use it. You have to learn to control it and learn to use it in the right times. And then other times you can't use it because you need to be connected to yourself and doing what you need to do for yourself, regardless of what other people think. Because I think that's the other thing too about being vulnerable, because if you're trying to live your life to the fullest, like, people aren't going to always like that, especially our friends and family. There's going to be times where they're definitely not going to be on board with things that we're trying to do, in our lives, because they're concerned or they're not sure, or you still have your BPD mom in your life. And of course, pretty much anything you do isn't going to please her. That is really tuned to who you truly are. So anyway, yeah, so I think that, like, what I need to do is to just continue to be really focused on what I think about what I'm doing more than what other people think about what I'm doing. Whatever decisions I have or perspectives I take in life. I going back to boys, there's a man that I've been attracted to for a long time, and he has certain religious aspects of himself, and sometimes, because I've been so attracted to him, at times I've been thinking about compromising my beliefs in order to fit with his, and it's been a really good exercise for me to to voice my beliefs to him and to voice what I think. And, and I'm not trying to convince him that I'm right and he's wrong. But instead it's just to say, like, this is who I am, and that's it. There's nothing to discuss about it, really. I mean, you can ask more questions and learn more about it, but there's nothing to really discuss. There's nothing that's going to change of that. I'm just simply being who I am, and anyway, I think that comes down to me having to continue, like, on a daily basis, like, really spend a little time in the mornings remembering that I believe that I'm enough, and that I'm good enough, and that I am doing what I love, and I am doing what pleases me, and that is so good, and from there I can make the right decisions, and also learn to do the things that I want to do in life and live my life to the fullest. And the people that may not agree with me, that's okay. They don't need to be in my life, or they don't need to be as involved in my life. That's totally fine. So anyway, so I think those are the things that I'm going to try to work on to kind of continue to get better with being comfortable with my vulnerability. And so then that way, I just want to keep living life to the fullest. And it's scary, and I'm in a scary place for sure in certain aspects of my life. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because otherwise I would be struggling like, some of my other family members who are still very much caught up in the whole family system and the whole family cycle of my family, and they're still just denying major parts of who they are in order to not be rejected by my family, or to be still good, or seen as the good child in my mom's eyes and stuff like that, and so I'm so grateful that I am getting the opportunity to be free, and that I can have this opportunity to just live my life as fully as I possibly can, even though that's going to take time, and even though, it's a journey, and it may be another 10, 20 years before I really am fully free to be myself. And that's okay. I would much rather be on this journey and this path than like anything else out there. So anyway, I hope this helps. So have a good day.